Hey, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Cold Blooded Serial. I am your host and true crime bestie, Tika. Where we last left off, U.S. Attorney Joanne Maida questioned the witnesses and Cindy Hamilton, Stella's oldest daughter. In today's episode, we're going to begin with Stella's lawyer questioning Cindy. Tom Hillier asks, Cindy, did you ever see your mom with any cyanide? I don't know what cyanide looks like. You have no idea that she ever had any cyanide? Is that true? I have no idea. And she never told you that she did this either, did she? Not that she positively had done it, no. He goes on to show that Cindy had never seen her mom crush the algae destroyer. She never saw her mom go to the library to get books about cyanide. She never saw her mom buy the Anacin 3 nor the Excedrin, and she never saw her mom put them back on the store shelves. Tom Hillier had nothing further, and Cindy was then able to step down. Later on in the trial, they questioned Dr. David Honigs, who was an assistant professor of chemistry from the University of Washington. He had written a number of articles on the analysis of cyanide as related to product tampering. He analyzed that the cyanide came from a German manufacturer, and he also determined that the green specks were there on purpose. His reason for this is because every Excedrin capsule had green specks, and every Anacin 3 capsule had green specks. But the Excedrin didn't contain Anacin 3, and the Anacin 3 didn't contain any Excedrin. So, it was obvious that they were mixed at different times in different containers. After questioning him and a few more witnesses, it was now Stella's turn to take the stand on April 27th. Of course, when she was asked about finding her husband boring after his sobriety, she said, "No, he was easier to get along with because he no longer had a temper." In fact, my love for him grew. Her lawyer asked her to clarify what she meant when she wrote a letter to a collection agency saying, "Bruce is no longer involved and I'd like a chance for myself, to prove my word to you." Her answer was, "That meant that I was at that particular time not listening to Bruce. We had a discussion about it, which was part of our marital problems, and I'm taking over the finances and getting us back to where we need to be." Her lawyer asked her a series of questions based on what Cindy told the court, and Stella denies everything that Cindy says except the reading of poisonous plants because she was a babysitter. Now, let's fast forward to the following day, April 28th. Stella is on stand once more, and now she has to talk about the day of Bruce's death. She cried and had to take breaks to compose herself. Now, I find this really weird because she didn't cry at the funeral. She didn't cry any other time prior to this. So I feel like she's just doing this to get sympathy from the jurors. Stella tells the court that she never told Cindy, "I know what you're thinking," and the answer is no. She also tells the court how she never told Cindy that she was going to move to Texas and that she was going to poison Bruce, nor did she tell Cindy about recreating the Tylenol murder case. And she also didn't give her husband any capsules that were tampered with. Now it just seems like everyone in Stella's life is lying about her. Like every single person. Poor Stella, right? Like she can't find someone to tell the truth about her. So Joanne Maida questions Stella and she asks her about her finances. And Stella's like, "Oh, they weren't that bad." So Joanne says, "Mrs. Nickell, between April and May of 1986, your financial situation had not been improving. It was steadily getting worse, was it not?" Stella says, no, it wasn't. So Joanne shows a letter from North Pacific Bank and Pacific Coast Investment saying that she was delinquent $8,500. And Stella's just like, yeah, no. By that point, our finances were starting to get better. Like, life was starting to get good. So I don't know what you're talking about. Stella was then asked to recall Bruce staying home sick in the beginning of 1985. Stella, of course, cannot recall this. So Joanne brings out the evidence. She shows Stella the sick leave records from Bruce's job. On January 21st, Bruce called in because he was sick to his stomach. On February 11th, Bruce called in because he had the stomach flu. Between March 18th and March 20th, Bruce called in because he was once again sick to his stomach. Then, towards the end of the year, on October 30th and November 1st, he called in because he had the flu. Based on the book Human Poisoning, these sound like side effects of foxglove. Yeah. So Joanne Maida then fires off numerous questions about things that Cindy told them, showing the proof that she had. And for every claim that Joanne Maida asked, Stella denied it. She even denied using algae destroyer, saying that Tom Noonan may have confused her for someone else. He told the court that he specifically ordered algae destroyer for you because you requested it. How would he confuse you for someone else? But once again, Tom is just another person lying on Stella, right? Attorney Maida asked her why her daughter would say that she used it. And Stella says, as far as I know, she has never said that I used it. I would never use a solid algae destroyer. Yeah, Stella is insane. Throughout all of this questioning, Stella's lawyer is getting frustrated, so he starts objecting like a psycho. And the judge is like, sustained. Like, I just imagine the judge sitting there like, hey, like, I need to know what's going on. Like, this is getting good. Like, give me all the tea, okay? Like, I need to know everything that's going on. Now it's time for the jurors to deliberate and for the attorneys to prepare their closing statements. U.S. Attorney Joanne Maida starts hers by expressing empathy for Sue Snow being an unwitting victim in Stella Nickell's crime. She says how Sue Snow had to die in order for Bruce's death to appear as a random accidental death. She continues, but the so-called random killer made 3 fatal mistakes in the otherwise flawless scheme. The first mistake was the algae destroyer contaminated bowl. Her second mistake was not leaving the autopsy alone. She had committed the perfect crime. The autopsy showed that he died of emphysema. But then, with her greed, Stella had to go and bring the contaminated bottles to the attention of the authorities. And third, Stella said she didn't shop at Pay 'n Save, yet she wrote checks to that store, the same store where the contaminated Anacin 3 was found. Only 5 of the 15,000 bottles examined by the FDA were contaminated, and of the 5, Stella produced 2. Joanne Maida talked about the different insurance policies and how numerous people heard her complain about a boring Bruce. And after 4 hours of closing, Joanne Maida concluded 2 people died because Stella Nickell, with cool, chilling deliberation, set out to eliminate them because it behooved her interest to do so. Her acts reflect a human being without a social or moral conscience. A hard, icy human being who was willing to adopt a horrendous course of action as was convenient to accomplishing her purposes. She has attempted to explain away all of her words and conduct, just as she has attempted to explain away every shred of physical evidence in this case presented against her. But she attempts to deny, and she attempts to explain away too much. Stella Nickell attempts to escape accountability for decisions which she made, which had irrevocable consequences to Sue Snow and Bruce Nickell. Afterwards, Tom Hillier stepped up to begin his closing and immediately attacked the government's closed-minded view of the case. He said that Stella was confused when she answered most of the questions. She wasn't lying, unlike her daughter, who lied and had inconsistencies in her testimony. He blamed Cindy for Stella being on trial and said that you can't believe a word she says because the dates in her story had never been consistent. I'm sorry, you can't call someone a liar because they don't remember a specific date. Like, if that's the case, I feel like the majority of adults in the world are lying for not being able to remember something that happened months ago. He ended with, "We're talking from a prosecutor's theory of a woman driven to kill. Where is there anybody other than Cindy Hamilton? We've got a lot of people saying, yeah, Stella had her gripes, but she voiced those gripes with Wilma and Jean Rice. That's consistent with their normal marriage. Ladies and gentlemen, with the ups and downs, with some frightful financial stress. Don't buy into this theory that there's too much there. Analyze each piece of evidence one by one. What are you left with? Cindy Hamilton." After 50 minutes, he was done. Now we're going to fast forward to May 3rd, 1988. It was time for the jury to deliberate. On May 6, 1988, the jury foreman wrote a note to the judge saying, "After 3 votes taken, we have been unable to reach a unanimous decision. No juror has changed his or her vote during this time. We await your instructions." So, because the judge didn't want a retrial, he sent the jury home early for the weekend and told them to regroup for deliberations on Monday, May 9th, 1988. Now it's Monday morning, and before the trial, 11 jurors witnessed one juror, Laurel Holliday, the one who was convinced of Stella's innocence, being escorted out of the courtroom by a bailiff. Minutes later, Judge Dwyer reads a note to the court that Laurel left him. He basically tells the court that someone called her at 7 p.m. on Friday evening and told her that Stella failed the polygraph. Laurel said that she no longer felt safe as someone was able to find her phone number. And back then, it was pretty easy to find a phone number. All you needed was someone's first and last name. Then you could look it up in a phone book. The judge talks to Tom Hillier and Joanne Maida. Tom is like, "Oh no, that juror needs to stay on this trial. Like, I want to keep her here as a juror." Joanne Maida is like, "No, I think we need an alternate juror." But the judge ended up granting Tom Hillier this favor and keeping Laurel Holliday on the trial as a juror. Now we're going to fast forward to a few hours later. It's now 3:35 p.m. on Monday, May 9th, 1988. The verdict was in. Foreman Murray Andrews gave the verdict to the clerk, who stood and read, "United States versus Stella Nickell. We, the jury, find Stella Nickell guilty of the crime as charged in count 1, guilty of the crime as charged in count 2, guilty of the crime as charged in counts 3, 4, and 5 of the indictment." Stella lowered her head and bit her lip. Laurel Holliday, the one juror who believed her innocence, was crying. Yeah, isn't that weird? Because it's like, you don't even know her. Like, why are you so convinced that Stella is innocent? Later the same day, Fred Phelps, Stella's boyfriend, says that he saw her shortly after the verdict, and he said that she seemed upbeat, already planning her appeal. Sue Snow's daughter, Haley, was crying, and her twin sister, Sarah Webb, just kept shouting, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh." Then, on Friday, June 17th, 1988, Stella Nickell, who was 43 years old, was sentenced to 90 years in prison with the possibility of parole in 30 years. On May 9th, 2019, Stella was up for parole, and Haley Snow, who is now an adult and a mom to a college-aged son, sat in the hearing while watching Stella on the closed-circuit TV. She texted the author, Greg Olson, and said that Stella confessed. It was a half-assed confession, but still a confession. Of course, Stella showed no remorse. Then, in 2022, Stella Nickell, who is now 78 years old and has served 34 years of her sentence, filed a petition arguing that her failing health and nearly spotless record in prison should qualify her for early release. But U.S. District Judge James Robart said that she didn't qualify for compassionate relief. Stella Nickell will be eligible for release in 2040 when she's 96 years old, according to court documents.
I went and looked up the reactions, definitions, whatever you may want to call it, of cyanide in the encyclopedia. I looked up nicotine. I looked up emphysema because I wanted to know why all pathologists at the hospital got pulmonary emphysema mixed up with cyanide poisoning.
All right, friends, this is where I leave you. I hope you enjoyed this episode. This is the end of the Stella Nickell Cyanide Aspirin case. Let me know what you think and stay safe, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.